We are back talking again about Twilight. We're going to talk about the last two movies, and we're going to make it a lot quicker than in the previous episode where we talked about the first three Twilight movies. You should go and watch that. It's episode 2 of this podcast, the Jasper podcast. Now, certain things I didn't cover about the third movie, which are pretty important, we'll talk about them now. So, this is a combat between some of the vampires, and there's Jasper. So, he's combat trained. He was in the Civil War, I guess. So he trains the others in combat, and he just ripped another vampire's arms off. He teaches them to like do this clothesline move because they defeat other vampires by like lobbing their heads off. So in the combat, that happens a lot, and that's why I like Jasper quite a bit. So I'll run through a quick tier list. So if you were just going off the first three movies, which we covered, Jasper would be your favorite character, right? We just don't get enough of Charlie, the dad, Bella's dad, to make him above Jasper. But Jasper, with his weird, like, stupid southern accent and his, like, actually bringing more of that creepy intensity than Edward does, the comedy of it all, and his, like, combat experience and being, like, in charge of this, like, battle. He's just the most likable character in the first three movies, but we'll rank the overall characters throughout the franchise, including ones that we haven't touched on yet. So, number one, absolutely, is Arrow. He's the head of the vampire government. Then you have Bella's dad, Charlie, just awesome everyman. He's a cop, it never ends up mattering. Then you have Jasper. He maintains some of that interestingness about him. He at least like has a character where most people don't in this franchise. You have Jane, the vampire government's like heavy hitter. She's super dangerous and cool and intense. Then you have Alice Cullen, who she can like see the future some of the time in the plot, needs it. Then you have the Cuck boys, Edward and Jacob. They bring the entertainment value and the insanity of their characters and how unlikable and ridiculous they are. Then you have James, the villain of the first film. He's greasy and quite a good villain, but he's only in one movie. You have this guy who's in the vampire government who is like really depressed and seems bored all the time, so that there's a lot of like comedy there unintentionally. Then you have like the friends of the group, Angela and Jessica, who are played by Christian Cerritos, who is Susie Crabgrass in Ned's Declassified and Rosita on The Walking Dead. And you have Anna Kendrick, who's in Pitch Perfect and a variety of other things. So they're the ones that the guys don't really give too much attention to. They all want Bella. They don't want these good-looking girls. Weird. So then you have Carlisle Cullen, the leader of the Cullens, the doctor, who is the only one who's medically trained. All of these vampires are like 100+ years old, but he's the only one who's medically trained. For some reason, the whole family decides they're just going to hang out at high school. In 100+ years, none of them so much as apprenticed under Carlisle or learned any of his skills or got any kind of like useful education for themselves. Really weird. Then you have the last airbender. He comes into play later on. You have the other of the original bad guys, Victoria and like Lucius or whatever. She gets recast, so it's a different actor at some point in the franchise. I think the first two movies, it's this girl on the right, and then it's this girl on the left, Victoria. She causes conflict in part 3. Then you have Bella, who's just the worst of the worst. Just awful. She destroys the lives of everyone around her. And yeah, terrible, terrible person. Boring character. She's supposed to be boring. She's supposed to be like in every girl, the underdog, the person you can like put yourself in their shoes. But you could do that and have the person, have the character actually have a bit of personality and some interests and have anything to the character. They don't have to be literally nothing of a character. So I'm gonna go through this Gabby Bell video. It's about 50 minutes long, so I'm not gonna like watch all of it, but I'm just gonna go through the last two movies and touch on some specific points. So Breaking Dawn Part 1, which is the fourth movie.
Rough skin.
We have Bella and Edward, they get married, and we see the wedding.
Let me go!
Jacob's not happy with it.
Huh? You'll kill her! Walk away,
This is a recurring theme in this film, as it was the last film.
So we see like the whole wedding. We see a variety of speeches at the wedding. We see the ceremony. It drags on forever.
Now that you're my sister, you'll have to get over your aversion to fashion.
And I know how to use a gun.
Like the director.
The problem with this is that it takes up a third of the movie. The first third is just this wedding. Like you see like everything, and it's dull. It's dull as could possibly be. So then we go back to Rio.
Washes her hands, washes her arms, shaves her legs, spends a while rummaging through the lingerie, has a mental breakdown.
So yeah, they get to Rio. They're on their honeymoon. Keep in mind that the Cullen family owns an island up the coast of Rio, private island. They're in this like private mansion, and this is a preparing for sex montage. And then after this, we get a sex montage where Edward and Bella have sex. They play chess. Then they have sex. Then they do some fun stuff. Oh, we're a couple and we're alone and we're finally living together. We're married. Fun stuff. Then they have sex. Then they play chess again. Then they have sex. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That takes up another third of the movie, and it's even more boring. Like the sex scenes aren't very hot, they're just very long. They're some of the least sexy sex scenes you could ever imagine. And this doesn't work. They like have sex in the water, they have sex in the bed, they break the bed. Bella's still a human, which creates problems as she gets pregnant.
Die. They go and ask the Brazilian housekeeper lady because she's native. They're gonna experience a little bit of flashbacks here.
Sei que você é demônio.
Interestingly enough, they don't put subtitles baked into these scenes, so I'll go ahead and translate for you. It's a miracle or something. Character to watch. Entire rest of the movie getting paler and skinnier. Jacob, Rosalie, Edward, and Alice all agree that Bella should, well, remove the child.
So Bella gets pregnant, and it's an accelerated pregnancy, so they go back to Washington and tell the Cullens about it, and they're like, holy crap, how are you like this pregnant? Like, you got this huge baby bump. You're like 8 months pregnant in a week or 2 weeks. What's happening? So then they figure out that it's like, well, first of all, Edward's like, we'll get that thing out of you. We'll get Carlisle. He'll get that thing out of you. So there's this weird, incredibly awkward, like, anti-abortion message, which is weird because the whole message of the franchise is like, hey, it's good to like lust and to like have that lust. Maybe you have that lust towards multiple people and it's okay, and you maybe wait till you're married, but you know, your whole life should revolve around who you want to bone. Like, you know, so regardless, this weird like anti-abortion stuff is just bizarre. It feels weird and forced. And so what happens is just insane. I'll play what Gabby plays here because it's wild. So she warns, like, this is going to get incredibly graphic. So the baby inside of Bella is growing at a rapid rate. and it will continue to after it's born, but everything's kind of up in the air, right? Like all she knows is she's getting skinnier and grayer, and this thing's like leeching all of her resources because this baby is a human vampire hybrid. It needs blood, so it's just draining Bella of her blood. It's killing her, and it gets kind of to a boiling point where it's like you have a giant like baby bump. This baby's huge. It's growing. It's stealing your resources. So it comes to a point where it's like, all right, you're having the baby, and it gets real graphic and crazy. So if you don't like that kind of stuff, you can skip ahead like 5 minutes in this video. Maybe not 5 minutes. I mean, it's not that crazy. You can watch it as long as you're cool with blood.
No, like pretend it's a podcast. She hilariously and disgustingly breaks her back like a twig as she...
So they decide that they're gonna like calm the baby down, have it stop leaching blood from her. So like, oh, well, maybe the baby wants blood. You know, it's a vampire. It's bloodthirsty. That's what's going on. That's why it's putting you through this misery. Let's give you blood. So Carlisle, the doctor, or I think it was Carlisle, they give her this cup of blood to drink. So she drinks out of this cup with the straw. In this shot, it's like there should be blood like in the straw, but you know, that's just a continuity error. But they give her a styrofoam cup. Like, look at it, it's styrofoam. And it's got like a plastic lid and a plastic straw. They give her this like disposable like gas station cup full of blood to just drink. Like, it's so dumb that they don't know what's going
just
on.
to take a sip from the blood. And I wanted to evaporate on the spot at this scene for so many reasons.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
Me too, Jacob.
Oh yeah, the baby just like kicked her in the spine and broke her spine in half.
The sound effects are just awful. And they cut her open before the morphine hits because there's no time. And it turns into a fucking horror film.
This like smiling hockey player in the ad.
Hi, I'm Steve Bloom.
Hi, Steve Bloom. I'm trying to watch this horrific scene.
It not only scared me into confirming that I do not want kids, but also made me want to throw up. I did not have a good time watching this a second time for you guys. Let that be known. And I didn't have a good time editing it for you either. I didn't. Just when you think it couldn't get even more disgusting, they have this nasty top-down shot of her in the bed, and Edward injects her with his venom, and
Yeah, he does that to try to save her by turning her into a vampire, but it's like pretty late in the game, so they kind of leave you. And this is right at the end of the film. Finally, something's happening in this film, and it's insane, and it's kind of left up in the air whether Bella survives this or not.
here comes the awful sound effects again. Yeah, she like dies, I guess. But we all know she's coming back to life because there's gotta be a part 2, okay? It'd be weird without her in it.
Yeah, they do an incredible job though with the effects on her. Like, they make it look like she's actually dead.
Okay guys, you can look again. It's gone. I didn't even show you even most of it. This scene was so awful. Anyway.
It's true, and the there's more to it that I'm going to talk about because it's really important. So, when this movie came out, a lot of us people who are fans of the franchise knew that something happened in the books, even without reading them, just word of mouth. And a lot of people were interested, right? Because it's like, how are they going to film this? What are they going to show this? Are they just going to cut it out? So a part that happens there, so they fail with that scalpel to do the C-section, the emergency C-section. So Edward comes up with the solution that, hey, I'm a vampire. We got to get this baby out. I'm going to use my fangs. He uses his vampire fangs to bite the baby out of Bella. He literally chews into her stomach, into her womb. He chews to the baby out of Bella. He gives her a full-on vampire C-section. And everyone was like, are they going to show it? There's no way they show it, right? This isn't going to happen, right? So you're watching this film and you're like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen in this one? Or is it going to happen in Breaking Dawn Part 2? Are they going to do it? There's no way they're going to do it. They can't do it. That's crazy. But then you watch this and it's this gore fest. Like there's a part where she's drinking the blood. It's just, there's so much blood and gore, and like they made Kristen Stewart look like she's actually just dead, and like she's gray, and just it's so like surgical and insane and off the wall. You're like, oh my god, it's happening. So then Edward does this, and the way they film it is so funny. So you see like Bella, and you see Edward's face, and he like extends his fangs or something, like it shows his fangs, and then his head slowly lowers like out of the frame, and then you hear chewing sounds as he chews the baby out of her. It's wild. It is the most wild crap you'll ever see in a movie.
Anyway, Jacob comes back inside from catching a breather, and we think he's coming back in to kill Renesmee, the baby, which is a combo of Bella and Edward's mom's names, Renee and Esme, Renesmee, whatever. And oh my god, guys, he falls to his knees.
That baby is CGI. You might not have noticed it, but it was, and that comes into play later in Breaking Dawn Part 2. And so does this, him falling to his knees.
And imprints on the baby.
So what imprinting is, it's this like werewolf law crap. So these werewolves, they don't choose this, but they fall in love with somebody like instantly and out of nowhere, and it's permanent. Now maybe you don't end up being with that person, but you are insanely madly in love with them. You're as obsessed as Jacob has been with Bella throughout this franchise. In that instant, he is now obsessed with her baby and madly in love with her baby. And this plot point continues into the last movie.
I think Breaking Dawn Part 1, I don't think I saw this one when I was younger.
And it's not treated as creepy as it is. So we'll move along and talk about Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Jacob gets very weird and obsessive over this baby before her own mother gets to meet her.
Alright, that's enough experimenting for one day. Jacob.
So yeah, Bella's back alive, and she's kind of meeting her baby for the first time, and clearly some time has passed while she's recovered, and Jacob is like kind of this weird like mother figure in a way to the baby. And this is wild, this exchange here.
She's doing great. Yeah, let's not push it though.
What's your problem?
Team Jacob fans should be pretty embarrassed by now. In the wise words of Tyra Banks, I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. What I noticed about Breaking Dawn 1 and 2 is that they absolutely kill Jacob's character, like, on purpose, it seems, to force the audience to be Team Edward. Because Jacob's character development from the very first movie, ironically, he's probably the only character that got character development at all now that I think about it. Not that the movies needed it, trust me, they were entertaining enough as static characters. He turns from, like, a nice guy to a Reddit nice guy. He goes from a mysterious, shirtless hunk with a little bit of edge to a stubbled creep who loves a baby. He goes from TikTok e-boy to nanny and like...
Yeah, you can see the CGI baby right there. And yeah, this guy was in love with Bella. He was insanely obsessed with her, being strung along for all this time. Like, that's why he's even there. That's why he's amongst these vampires. He's just out of control, obsessed with Bella. But nope, now he's onto the baby. Now he's onto that CGI baby. He needs him some baby love. And he's there. He's like a part of the family. It's wild that he's a part of the family. They should be like, dude, you gotta go. You gotta go, dude. This ain't right. But nope.
You imprinted on my daughter?
Jacob calls Renesmee Nessie, and Bella drops this.
From the beginning, it was Nessie who wanted me there.
Nessie? You nicknamed my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?
I was laughing out loud at this scene.
I think like even like it might have even been Robert Ebert. Roger Ebert? Yeah, Roger Ebert. Sorry. He said like, all right, that's a good line. I could be wrong. It could be a different like prominent movie reviewer, but it's like, yeah, that was kind of funny. That worked. Surprisingly, they threw in like a good line there.
Boom, Disney one-liner.
Stop! I'm tired of this. From now on, I'm Switzerland, okay?
So we get this really cool montage of Bella's new powers as a vampire, and Bella is just instantly goated.
Yeah, she kills some animals. She goes, there's a guy, like a hiker or whatever, a guy like rock climbing, and she initially like goes over to go after him. Decides not, like she somehow calms her bloodlust. There's a scene in here where Jacob decides he's going to tell Charlie, Bella's dad, that or no, did that happen in part 1? I think that happened in part 1. Or maybe it happens here. So Jacob takes it upon himself to tell Charlie that like, hey, your like daughter's like a vampire and you have this like vampire granddaughter and there's werewolves and I'm a werewolf.
Let's go. This wig was like $20. You're not gonna give me any lines. You can think of any skit. Are you really? Really? To finally meet again after he's been worrying for weeks. At least I think it's weeks. I don't actually know. They don't handle the passage of time in this movie very well, and you'll see why. And for some reason, to get Charlie to understand that things are okay, but they're just a little weird now, Jacob takes off all his clothes, something he's never had to do before to transform.
What the hell are you doing?
You don't live in the world you think you do.
Jacob, put your clothes on.
So he can turn into a werewolf in front of Bella's dad.
Stranger things happen every day.
Oh yeah, this just happens. In the theater that I saw this in, the audience was like, they were cheering it on. It was ridiculous. Crazy scene.
Trust me.
I don't know why he does this. There was no purpose. He could have just like had them meet up.
Yeah, it's just for fan service for the audience.
With Jacob running shirtless in the rain, so this one's already losing points on me. Come on. We need to talk about this baby. Let's be honest, it's terrifying. It's a CGI baby, which is fine. It's easier, cheaper. You don't have to employ babies to act in your film. But wow, I just don't know.
I couldn't disagree more. This is crazy. Like, no. Yes, you have to pay some actors, and you probably have to pay them like a decent wage, but they're also barely in it. You could have gotten a baby and, you know, brought them along. It couldn't have been that expensive to just have a baby. Like, it would have cost the same. You would have easily spent $1 million additionally to the CG that's already in the movie to have this baby. Are you kidding me? How is it cheaper to do this? Because this isn't that badly done, right? It's almost that it's done well, which is what makes it so creepy and terrifying, is that it's so good, but it's just off, right? It's that uncanniness to it that makes it so terrifying. You would have spent easily over $1 million on this baby. You could have just gotten a real baby. Just use a real baby. It's gonna look a million times better. This is a freak show.
Know what to think of it. It's almost uncanny, like the kids in Polar Express, which scared the f out of me as a kid. I never liked that movie because of the uncanny valley. And Renesmee ages so fast. Like, Bella had sex once and
They eventually use like an actual actor, and like Charlie meets her, and she's like in a not an adult, but she's like 8 years old.
Squad, and Nessie is still terrified.
So he like first meets her and she's like 6, and then all of a sudden she's like 8. Keep in mind, it's all physical, right? Like, she's physically right here 5, 6, but mentally she's only been alive for maybe a couple months at the most. I forget how much the time passes, but basically what's going on is Bella, Edward, Jacob, the Cullens, they're gathering the vampire X-Men to fight against the vampire government, those like Italian family, the Volturi, who have their own sort of army. And so the Volturi are mad that Edward and Bella have this half human, half vampire baby, which historically caused a lot of chaos and destruction, as they're not mature, but they're super powerful. They're like way more powerful than a typical vampire. So they're super powerful, and they've like wiped out villages in the past. And they literally show Jane of the Volturi, the Dakota Fanning. She can inflict pain with like, she puts out this cloud of pain that makes like everyone just suffer. And she can kill people with that. So it looked like in the past, in the flashback, that Dakota Fanning had like used her powers to like kill one of these like immortal child is what they call them, these half vampire, half human babies who are super powerful, with the help of the other like Volturi members. So they've been a huge hassle in the past, but it's kind of nonsensical that the Volturi would be this worried about it. And it's also nonsensical that they don't literally just pick up the phone and call Italy and be like, you know, everything's fine over here in Washington. We literally have like a vampire werewolf alliance, and we're a squad with Bella being a vampire now. Now they're like 9 deep, just the Cullen family. Like, we got 9 vampires in a pack of werewolves here. Like, we've literally had to fight a war against newborn vampires. And plus, they have like other relatives around. Like, one of the cousins of the Cullens saw this baby as like a toddler or whatever, vampiring it around, and they're like, what the hell is this? Like, they have a half human, half vampire baby. So she goes and rats them out to the Volturi. So now the Volturi are pissed, and they're coming to crack skulls and like kill this kid. So that's why they have to assemble this army to prevent that. And I don't know why they couldn't just communicate to the Volturi and be like, we're running pretty heavy over here. Like, we've literally got like an army. Even before they recruit others, they still have like other relatives relatively nearby. And they have like, what, like 10 plus werewolves and 9 vampires. Like, I think they're good. I think even if the kid rampages, they got it under control themselves.
Terrifying CGI as a toddler. Like, they could have gotten an actual kid at this point. She doesn't even have that many speaking lines, but they still chose to go with CGI Nessie. And it's so funny how they all gather at the Cullens and just stand around. You're telling me vampires don't have hobbies? Actually, does anyone have hobbies in this franchise? Besides Edward playing the piano twice and liking Debussy?
Debussy.
Seriously, name one of Bella's hobbies.
She likes Shakespeare. She will sometimes go to the movies if like friends are going.
Name one thing Charlie Swan likes doing besides reading the newspaper and drinking beer. I guess he likes watching baseball, but like, does watching baseball really count as a hobby? What's one thing that Jacob likes doing? And fixing up that vampire, I was not expecting that. Where he's a f***ing waterbender, I guess. Okay, I guess he's the f***ing Avatar now.
Water.
Earth. Fire.
So yeah, the Cullens, they recruit this guy. This guy is the last airbender. He has control of the elements, including fire, which is just insane. Why would the Volturi ever try to mess with them once they recruit this guy? How have they not assassinated this guy? This guy can control fire. Is he just right there? Is he summoning fire onto his fingers? This guy can summon fire. One of the two things. So you defeat a vampire by setting them on fire or popping their head off. This guy would be able to just rain down fire on an entire vampire army and just roast them with no effort. Like, this guy is way too powerful. And so many of the other vampires, in whatever superpower they have, we often don't even find out what their power even is, and it just doesn't come into play at all. And there probably would be some really cool ones.
There's also the Amazonian women vampires. Brazil mentioned.
Yeah, we'll skip right along. So they assemble the vampire army, and then the Volturi finally show up.
Like this at this point in the series, I just can't. So we get this weird standoff, and they prove to Aro, this guy, that their child is not an immortal child, and Bella looks like she has to poop the entire time. I swore to myself I wasn't gonna make fun of her facial expressions this movie, because it's such low-hanging fruit, but goddamn, they really told Kristen Stewart to look angry and don't stop, and she delivered. So Aro sees the truth that she's still human, and
Yep, that just happened. Oh, I gotta see it again.
their child is not an immortal child, and Bella looks like she has to poop the entire time. I swore to myself I wasn't gonna make fun of her facial expressions this movie, because it's such low-hanging fruit, but goddamn, they really told Kristen Stewart to look angry and don't stop, and she delivered. So Aro sees the truth that she's still human.
So who this guy is who's overacting like a lunatic, he's the like president of the vampire government. He's the head Volturi guy. His name's Arrow. I don't know why she keeps calling him Aro, but he's Arrow because they call him that in the movies. I'm pretty sure that's how they pronounce it. But he's the head vampire, and he's normally when you see him throughout the franchise, he's being incredibly turned on by either Edward or Carlisle, or like talking about Carlisle. He's this incredibly the actor clearly understands this is some trash films that he's in, and he decided to overact as much as he could, because who cares? It's Twilight. Like, I'm the big bad. Let's go crazy with it. So he gives a performance that's like reminiscent of Nicolas Cage in Vampire's Kiss. The guy just to the left of him is this guy who's like chronically depressed, and that comes into play later on, as you'll see. But yeah, the Arrow's my favorite character because he's just so incredibly amused by everything. Everything is so crazily over the top.
And she will age and mature, but he still, like, makes a case to his posse that Nessie could still be dangerous. And hey, yo, you were probably wondering where Alice and Jasper were this entire time. Well, they're here.
The party don't start till I walk in.
Alice was gone the entire movie because she wanted to protect them, I guess. Motivations in Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2 are not very clear or well thought out. Apparently, a lot of necessary context was left out of the books, and all the characters in the films became even more one note than they were before. The warm, kind Alice that we all knew and loved is suddenly and randomly so cold and businesslike. We never get to see her and Bella interact as vampires. She never meets Renee be a threat to their kind, but he doesn't care. And then she kicks him in the face and starts the battle. I was hooting and hollering this entire fight.
Yeah, so Alice tells him, like, hey, this isn't, like, that big of a deal. She's not necessarily going to rampage. you don't need to do this. He says, well, whatever, we're gonna do it. Let's fight. Or she like sees with her power that he's going to do it anyway, so she decides to like act first. It just super kicks him into the sky. Everyone cheered. Everyone's like, holy crap, like what? This fight that the movie's been building up to that we were certain was not going to happen. It's happening.
Scene. They kill off Dr. Carlisle. I was shocked. I was shocked at the huge balls that Stephanie grew for this half of the movie. I was truly surprised given the lack of consequences that the Cullens have faced any of these prior films. To kill off a beloved character like that? Stephanie. Wow. Jacob runs away with Nellie, and we get some badass fight scenes like they didn't pull any punches. No unclear shaky cams. We get full action, full choreography. It's like what I've been craving from Twilight this entire time. So much of the choreography feels like it got pulled from that era's WWE.
He just rock bottomed that guy. Yeah. Because it's established earlier in earlier films that one of the most effective ways, it's basically what Jasper teaches them in the third one, is like do a clothesline. Do the clothesline from hell to other vampires and it will just knock their head off because they're super strong and super fast, as we saw in the baseball scene in the first movie. So if you just like Naruto run and then do that into the lariat move in Naruto, you will just insta decapitate your enemy, and it's just more effective than doing anything else.
Dakota Fanning is back, and she just walks around staring at people because her power is staring and inflicting pain from afar.
Yeah, I never thought about it before, but really what Jane is, she's just Itachi from Naruto. She's just throwing you in genjutsu.
Through telepathy, of course. But don't worry, sis, because Bella's also got a staring power now to protect people. So Bella and Dakota Fanning just spend the whole battle doing this shit. Oh my god, ouch, ow, ow. Guys, there are people dying over here. Although I won't lie, they do give Bella some fun choreographed fights. What I also realized is that this whole fight could have just been won by their overpowered Avengers. Like, they have the Avatar who can bend the earth. Just open up the earth beneath.
Yeah, he creates this giant like fissure in the earth. Creates this huge like ravine. It's like a Minecraft ravine. He just like does out of nowhere, which is so dangerous to what's going on. Like there's literally like dead bodies all over the place. This is a truly wild and awesome scene. And yeah, it's like this guy just start blasting everybody with fire. You could take out the entire battlefield yourself. You could just eliminate both sides.
Beneath their feet before they start running at each other. The Amazon staring woman can also literally blind people and make them see what she wants you to see. Couldn't she have just blinded the entire Volturi? And Bella could have literally protected them with the shield like she did earlier? They kill off Jasper. Seth dies. This guy dies. I don't know who he is, but they used this hilarious sound effect. Leah dies. There's another staring contest, but it'll be her last, cause she literally gets fed to the wolves by Alice, which is f***ing awesome. She also had like no lines in this movie. It's like they were trying to save on that budget, but
yeah, they probably were trying to save on the budget. I mean, it's Dakota Fanning, right? I mean, you still got to pay her a lot to even be there, but you could pay her a lot less by having her not talk. But she's ultimately like the coolest, most dangerous person. So it would have made more sense to have her specifically take out the last airbender, where she just gets the drop on him, and while he's being like inflicted with pain, which logically you would do like early on in the battle, and you'd probably have a squad of like 5 of your random Volturi like goons just hit him with like their own other powers. But we don't really get the Volturi's powers. We only know like arrows and Jane's. So it would have been nice to see like more powers and maybe get to know a little more, because Arrow's power isn't even like combat based.
by not giving her any speaking lines. This guy, one of the main Volturi henchmen, literally wanted to die, which is
Which this part's awesome. He just gets like, he just gets clapped out. He like wanted to. They just like rip him in half. The two Russian of the vampire X-Men, and this guy's just so happy. He's so depressed throughout the franchise when you see him, and then he's just gets ripped apart, and he's so glad. That's such a cool addition that they did. That this specific guy is like, he's been alive way too long.
So fucking funny because it is so random and has never been brought up before. And then, sorry guys, we're almost done. Bella and Edward run up to the main guy Aro like it's fucking Naruto. Like that battle between Naruto and Sasuke where they're just running at each other. Bella gets thrown, but Edward picks her up and whacks her across Aro's head as she kicks him. So fucking epic. And then he throws her to kick him in the chest, and Bella puts him into a chokehold, and Edward kicks in his knees to give out so Bella can put the finishing moves on him. You know what? I think Bella might actually be part sociopath. I kind of forgot the first time watching this around that Bella has never killed anyone before, let alone hurt someone seriously.
Yeah, but I mean, she's also like defending her daughter. So another important thing happens, right? Now this Gabby here is really disappointed by this, but I think it was cool. I was like, that was awesome, you know? And then something happens, and it's like, oh, well.
Because she was a normal high school girl, and she just pulls this off like it's nothing, and like she's been training in the WWE for years. Yeah, so Aro gets fucking burned, and then... That's it. I'm done, right?
Yep, it was all a dream. Which sounds really lame, and it was disappointing. Like, people groaned in the theater because everyone enjoyed how awesome that was. And I don't mind it because like about 30 seconds later I'm like, you know what, I'm glad they did that, because if they didn't do that then the issue would just be resolved. Like, why would you have a movie where you assemble the vampire X-Men and have the Vulture come all the way there and stand off with them, and then they just get like talk no jutsu'd. Like, they just get convinced to not fight. I mean, that is ultimately what happens, but it would have been way worse. It would have been far more disappointing if they just did nothing.
Right when it was good.
Obviously, it would have been phenomenal if it was just what actually happened. That would have been the better ending, but I mean, it's not like there's more content beyond this. There's not another Twilight book. Hopefully, eventually there is, and another movie. That'd be awesome. But if nothing exists beyond this, then you could just say canonically that battle, that outcome, that is what happens. It's cool.
Right when it was good.
Now you know.
But you'd be missing out on something incredibly greasy that's about to happen. You think you know Grease? It's about to get greasier.
That's your future.
There are no consequences. Nothing happens because Aro sees that he would die if he did. They bring out this guy who's also half human vampire.
So this is really important. She kind of glosses over this, but so this guy on the left here, he is also like 18, but he's locked in. So he was also a half vampire, half human baby. He was born, and just like Renesmee, had accelerated growth. So he reached his physical age, which he still currently is, which he got locked into for who knows how long. He looks like he is from the, like, it looks like he was existed in North America like 500 years ago, maybe longer. So the thing is, he was like mentally in real time, like, I forget what they say. They say something like 8 years old or 6 or 7, somewhere around there. Let's just say 6. It might be 7, it might be 8, but it's one of those. So say 6 years old. He is now has the body of an 18-year-old, and he will forever. So the problem is that this implies that Renesmee will be like 6 years old and be 18. Now, why that matters is because Jacob is madly in love with her and going to be in a relationship with her. Yes, she has accelerated growth and she can walk around and stuff and maybe even talk and has some of the like knowledge, able to like cram in a lot of knowledge and learn things quickly, right? To an extent. But still, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, she's still like a few months old. So it's still when Jacob bangs her when she's 18, she's still like mentally a 6-year-old. That's crazy. So yeah. And there's like there's a part where
Should I start calling you Dad?
I thought you said it wasn't like that, Jacob. Who are you? I don't even know you anymore. What happened to you? And then Alice sees that Jacob is going to romantically be with Renesmee, and Edward reads her mind and is aware of it too, and they just don't care. What has happened to you?
Should I start calling?
Sees that Jacob is going to romantically be with Renesmee.
yeah, and look how old they are. Isn't that crazy? Because Jacob looks like the same, like Edward and Bella there. They look like the same. So this is like a few years. Within a few years, he, like at the end of the movie, Renesmee is like, I don't know, maybe like a year old, but she like looks like she's 8 or whatever. Once she's like actually like 6 years old here. It's hard to get the exact details of the timeline. They don't really provide it. But think about that. This is like a few years. So she's like 6 and he's banging her. And her parents are okay with it. Her parents, who, mind you, he was completely obsessed, madly in love with Bella. He's kissed Bella. Like, the greatest moment of his life that we see in the movies besides this is him kissing Bella so he wouldn't like join that battle and potentially die. That's so bizarre, man. I don't know how people who are like fans of these films and these books don't talk about this. Like when I bring some of these points up of the just sheer insanity of this franchise, they just have like nothing to say, or like maybe they laugh and say, yeah, that is pretty gross, but it's like they've never given it deep thought of what the hell is going on with these characters and this story. Because he, upon seeing this baby, like maybe the day the baby was born or one day after the baby was born, fell to his knees madly in love with it and is going to have sex with it when it turns like 6 years old. And that's Twilight. That this is Twilight. This is the franchise. This is what people said was better than Harry Potter. There was people, a fair bit of people who were like, when the first couple movies happened, they're like, no, this franchise is better than Harry Potter. This. And this is like the ending. This is the happy ending. Now granted, there's another scene where like Edward and Bella, they're like in this flower meadow and they're like reflecting on their romance and it's sappy and cheesy. But like this is a flash forward from that we're seeing here. So this is the last thing we see of these characters. This is the real ending. What the heck is this? This is disgusting on like 100 different levels. You have one relationship where the guy is 100 years older than the girl, and then you have another one where Jacob is so like 18 or 19 years older or 20 years older. Yeah, let's just say 19 years old. and was in love with her since the day she was born. Really greasy, like just greasy beyond anything you might have imagined this franchise would be. Like, I assumed going into the first movie, the way that the things people talked about were like how this is this like love story and there's this love triangle. There's people buying shirts that say Team Edward or Team Jacob. This like really big successful thing. These were successful movies, right? These were movies that people watched and enjoyed and they took it seriously. You know, they would have had to have accepted some of the goofiness, but they only accepted a tiny portion of that goofiness. People took this seriously and enjoyed it as a serious piece of entertainment. Not like me, not like you, where we enjoy it as like this B movie, this like hurricane of garbage, this trash pile beyond belief, beyond imagining. I never could have imagined that Edward would be this stalker, this pedo who has never had a conversation with Bella, but he uses his vampire powers to watch her sleep. He breaks into her home and watches her sleep and stalks her and is like unbelievably lustful towards his 15-year-old as he's 100 years old. I assumed he was just a teenager who happened to be a vampire. That's what I thought going into this. You know? But no, it's not that. It is so much worse. It is unbelievably disgusting of a story. Just vile beyond compare. Epic. Like I showed with that tier list of having Bella in F tier. She destroys everyone's life. Like, think about the destruction, the havoc she has caused on Edward, on Jacob, on her own daughter. She is a nightmare. She is one of the most villainous characters in cinematic history. And so many fans of this franchise, they don't see it. They don't see it at all. They think, oh no, this is just a nice love story. Aren't these characters great? Like, like, think about the concept of having to have a team Edward and a team Jacob. The only reason you would have that would be if these characters are both like so lovable that you have to have like a passion for which one is greater than the other because they're just so awesome. They're both so great and fantastic and both dreamboats of men, both the pinnacle of men, just like perfection personified. That's what like people bought into. That's what they felt. And in the short time frame that people were into that during like the first 3 movies being out, more so just the first 2, where you would even see people with these shirts, those people were only that invested into it. Like, if they were that invested, they read the books. So this frame that you're seeing in front of you, this happy ending of that was something that they knew about. They knew what the outcome would be. They knew what the end result was. They knew how like manipulative and horrible and horrifying these main characters were, right? Whereas almost if you like watched the first movie, maybe you wouldn't have enough time to process how much of a creepy stalker PDF file Edward was. Maybe you just kind of like overlooked that. And but no, like, those people who were that into it, they'd already read the book, so they knew it like was so much worse than that. So it's kind of this like really crazy, when you think about it as an entire franchise. It's kind of like this movie that I consider to be one of the most horrifying horror movies ever made. And I think this you could put in that category. This is just, it's across an entire film franchise with this. So, but the movie I'm thinking of is the movie Compliance. The movie Compliance, I recommend you watch, and it's scary because it's kind of scary in the way that Rosemary's Baby is scary, which maybe Rosemary's Baby is a better example, because in Rosemary's Baby, you have this woman these people are basically like after her baby. They're manipulating her. And that's scary because it's something, it could happen. You could have a collective of people working against you, right? You know, that's what the true horror of that film is, that the people are just people, and they're just like out to, they're working collectively against this woman. And that's something that does happen. That literally happens in the real world. That's something that can happen. It's something that does happen. Maybe not to that, not with those specifics, but it's a real, gritty, horrible, awful thing. It's something to be feared, right? Same thing with the movie Compliance, where in the movie Compliance, it's about this real life story that happened at a McDonald's, where this guy called on the phone pretending to be a police officer, gave the description of a female working there, this like teenage employee, and convinced the female manager, that like, hey, this girl like stole from a customer, and I'm a cop, and you have to lock this girl up in your like back room, and you have to strip search her. And eventually the female like manager is like, I gotta go to work. Like, this is a McDonald's. We got stuff to do. It's the dinner rush. I gotta go. So she like calls her husband, and she's like, yeah, the cops are telling me you gotta like watch over this girl. Like this, I'm watching over this girl. She might have stolen, blah, blah, blah. The cops are eventually going to show up. So I need you to come to this McDonald's and watch over this girl. So then he comes over, he takes the phone, and then he's talking to this cop. Well, this cop isn't really a cop. It's some like creeper. But this creeper, pretending to be a cop, instructs him to like assault this girl like physically and sexually. And the guy did it. And this really happened, right? It straight up happened, right? I remember the news story. So it's one of the most horrifying movies you'll ever see. It's one of the worst horror movies. Genuinely scary, even though it isn't a horror movie. It's like a thriller. But because it's something that genuinely, truly happened, it's terrifying. And I think the Twilight saga is also terrifying in the same way. Not in that direct of a way, like nothing in here could really happen. No one's actually going to be like 109 years old and going to a high school and hooking up with a 15-year-old. But some of those things, like stuff like that happens, just not to that extreme. And like the fact that people could watch this and not pick up on the extremely grossness of it all, it really is unsettling when you think about it. How did people not like think about that at all? Like and it's not like they were swept up in like a really well-made movie or like a really well-told story. There's nothing to like certain things. I'll watch it and I'll kind of like overlook certain aspects because it's just so well made. You just get so immersed in the story, so drawn in, that you kind of like overlook certain aspects. Not with Twilight. It is some of the worst made movies ever made, and the books have to be some of the most ridiculous things ever too, because that's the source material for the movies. That's where they get this stuff from. This stuff happens in the books. Everything except for the battle at the end of the last movie. So the fact that like millions upon millions of people unironically enjoyed this, they don't enjoy it for how bad it is, they think that it's good, is scary. So I'll leave you with that, a scary note. The video was by Gabby Bell. She makes really good videos. This one was just a bit long, so I had to skip through it, and this video is already like 59 minutes. But yeah, I love the franchise. It is so much B-movie charm, and there's just so much to it. There's so much to talk about. These movies are so poorly made, and they dive so deep down the rabbit hole of like pure insanity that it's incredible. And I hope you check them out, and I hope you check out Gabby Bell, and I hope you check out more of my podcast. I love talking about this series of movies because it's a wild ride that you would never expect it to be. So I hope you check out more of the podcast. I hope you like and subscribe me and Gabby Bell, and I like talking to you. See you later.